Whether we're talking about sexual harassment, discrimination, racism, sex trafficking, pornography, abortion, finding answers first starts with a question. And it's all a question of worth. And who determines it? Consider, for example, how we value the worth of a mother and her babies. Imagine if we as a country agreed that they both had worth and value and should be protected at all stages, with laws punishing anyone interfering, harassing, harming, or killing either the mother or her little ones, even before they enter the world. Well, you don't have to imagine, because we do. These are the federal laws that are actively enforced in every state. You just have to be an eagle. And these are the maximum penalties for violating these laws, double if you're an organization. Did you know that you could be charged for disturbing an eagle's nest even before the eggs are laid? So why do we afford such protection for this bird? It's not because they're endangered or even threatened. The bald eagle was delisted from the Federal Endangered Species Act back in 2007, yet they are still protected by other federal laws. Why? Simply, our government sees the value and worth in the eagle. And yet, should circumstances change to where we no longer value or see the worth in this bird, then it could become open season on the eagle, killing them perfectly legal. Isn't it a good thing we don't let anyone determine our worth and value? Or do we? What is your worth? And who do you let determine it? Think of those in your life who influence how you may answer this question, starting with your parents. They can build us up and be our most ardent cheerleader through life, or from a very young age tear us down, leaving permanent scars lasting well into adulthood. And while it's true you can't pick your parents, you can pick your friends. And of course, we only pick friends who'll have our back, to pat, never to stab. Oh, we wish. It's devastating to be betrayed by a friend, but not as much as the one we give our hearts to, the one who may eventually become your spouse. In the beginning, you've never felt more loved, but for some, even before the honeymoon's over, so are those loving feelings. And feeling unloved, unappreciated by the one you trusted the most can deeply affect how you feel about your own worth and value. And what about your teachers and your boss? I put them together because they both evaluate our worth, one through grades, the other through performance ratings, all meant to help us reach our potential. Yet, how one gives and how we receive that feedback can instead make us want to drop out, to quit. But now, for that one true positive force in life, your social media. What? No? But don't you have to log in to get all those warm, fuzzy feelings? And don't you freely post those pictures and memes so that you can then count the number of likes so that you can feel good about yourself? Sad, isn't it? And what's really sad is how someone can repost someone else's meme and then take full credit or ridicule for it. Now here's my favorite influencer, your mirror or the scale. You exercise, diet, feeling good until you step on that scale to see that you've gained weight. How sad to allow a number on a scale to affect the rest of your day. And finally, your government and all those politicians who say they are for the people. Not only do some of our politicians of today berate their opponents, but they now, with an ugly big brush, devalue their opponents' supporters. For a country that bemoans the mistakes of the past and not seeing the worth, value, and equality of every person, we sure are doing a great job in repeating those mistakes of division, discrimination, and hate. So many may say, don't let all these people and things influence how you determine your worth. Let yourself do the job. In fact, this self-determination of one's worth has a name. Simply, self-worth. Many believe self-worth is the key to understanding and solving all human problems. But is it? Or could it be the cause of many of our problems today? Let's first take a look how Webster defines self-worth. Self-worth is a feeling. Right there, you should have cause to pause. For a feeling, strong as it may be, is a flighty thing and can change on a dime. But let's go on. It's a feeling that you are a good person who deserves to be treated with respect. That's a good thing if you feel you're a good person, but what if you don't? In essence, what this is saying is how you feel about yourself at any given day, hour, minute will determine whether others should respect or disrespect you. That is plain wrong. The other problem with self-worth is look who's back to impact how you feel about yourself. So where did this word self-worth come from and gain its importance in our lives and in our society? You can thank this politician from California who back in the 80s was convinced that by raising the population's self-esteem or their self-worth was the answer to all social ills. And he convinced the state to study self-esteem. Yet even when the researchers came back and showed no correlation with artificially raising self-esteem with a drop in crime or a rise in academic achievement, he still managed to convince the psychological community who ran with it. Trophies for everyone. And we are living with that lie to this day and the damage it has caused our society. It has left us now with two extremes because, as the name describes it, self-worth is all about self. There are those with a big concept of their self-worth, where they believe the world revolves around them, like most of those who can harass and bully others without batting an eye. And they have become untreatable, self-centered narcissists. On the other extreme, those who have a diminished feeling of their self-worth feel increasingly insignificant to a point they don't even think they matter. Given these two extremes, imagine two women deciding to have an abortion. On one extreme, you have the woman who will actually celebrate her abortions, cherishing her right to her body over anyone else's, including the father's right to his child or the child's own right to life. On the other extreme, the woman cowers into an abortion clinic, broken, distraught, agreeing or having been manipulated into the abortion because she sees herself without options, a loser, and in no way able to be a good mother. Her feeling of self-worth is so diminished, it's no wonder she can so easily diminish the worth and even the life of her own child. And while it's almost impossible to reach the narcissist, it's imperative that we help the broken. Understand that in their brokenness and damaged self-worth and self-image, these are the words they use to describe what they see of themselves. I'm a loser. I'm ugly. I'm unlovable. I'm a victim. And yes, I'm worthless. It is in this state where they become vulnerable and so easily manipulated. Manipulated by others to do things because they are made to feel they had no choice until they realize afterwards they made the wrong choice. This vicious cycle is perpetuated by asking the wrong question. When you ask the wrong question, you're bound to get the wrong answer. So don't ask, what is your self-worth? Rather, what is your worth? And where should it come from? Now, before attempting to answer these questions, there's one more. Does your worth have a price? Now, what I mean by that is assuming you have an understanding of your inherent worth. Do you put a price on it because of certain circumstances? I needed that promotion. I couldn't afford to get fired. I wanted that role in the movie, so I let him touch me. I couldn't afford another child. I couldn't finish my degree. My husband said he would leave me. My parents would kick me out. So I had to have the abortion. Those excuses are circumstances. What we need to do is get rid of the circumstances. Eliminate the root cause that leads women to wrong choices, because our worth should never be put up for sale. Because our worth is priceless. We are all priceless. We dedicated one of our last issues of The American Feminist to this truth, that we are forever priceless. We are now speaking directly to parents because they're coming after our little girls, and our girls deserve better. We need to instill that they are forever priceless. We must teach everyone that each one of us has an inherent worth. We need to remind everyone that our country was founded on this belief, and yes, it is protected. Now for a little civic lesson. We have a three-branched government. The legislative branch makes the laws. The executive branch enforces the law. And the judicial makes sure that the law and how it's enforced is constitutional. Our country, with its three branches, was founded on the belief in the intrinsic value of humanity. And with that intrinsic worth came certain rights. Our government was established with the main purpose to protect those rights. Nowhere does the tenet of our government say this more clearly than in the words of the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. Each one of us should memorize these words and challenge everyone, especially our elected officials, to boldly, proudly, and yes, completely recite these words. Let's take a closer look at each phrase and see why changing or deleting even one of them would change the system of laws in this country and our country itself. Starting with, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Truths, not opinions, not poll results, not a political party platform. Truths. Self-evident, meaning you don't need to be a politician or have a law degree or PhD to know or understand these truths. They are self-revealing. And what are these truths? That we are all created equal. All created equal. Not born equal, not naturalized equal, but created equal. And these words were carefully chosen to show that our inherent worth begins when our life begins, which is at conception. And what is the next truth? That we're endowed by our government with certain unalienable rights. Oh, wait, something's not right. It's not our government, it's our Creator. And these certain rights are unalienable, meaning they cannot be separated from our human person. And what are these certain rights? Right to life, right to liberty, and right to happiness. Oh, wait, there is no right to happiness. It's the right to the pursuit of happiness, which for our forefathers had significant meaning, going back to Aristotle. The pursuit of happiness was the pursuit of all that is good. Our forefathers understood the significance of these words, which would become the foundation of our government. They were building a new home, and as those who know about home construction, laying a solid foundation is the first and most important part to ensure its success. The Constitution, a very thin pamphlet, provided all that was needed for the framing and construction of our home. Sure, the initial house was lacking. Our forefathers knew that. But they also knew that a strong foundational footprint would allow for additions. We call them constitutional amendments. Over the years, we have added and edited to make our home more welcoming to all. However, we are living in very shaky times where many of our elected officials want to rebuild the government by removing the foundation. And as you know, if the foundation cracks or is removed, the house will come down. If you don't believe this is already happening, ask why some of our elected officials can't or won't repeat all those fundamental words found in the preamble. Most likely, it's because they no longer believe them. For many, they are currently operating under the new preamble, which goes something like this. We hold for now that you are born equal. Note that there is no longer truth, because it's all relative to their reality, to their ends. And since many are pro-choice, your right to equality and even your right to live only comes after your mother says you have worth to be born. Next, you're given rights by the government. There's no more talk or room for a creator or God. The government is now in charge to determine what rights they will give and to whom, with their discretionary enforcement power, depending on the worth of those involved. So you could have two identical scenarios. For example, a boss who sexually harasses one of their employees. And depending on who's doing the harassing, prosecution by the government or media will be ignored or enforced to the extreme letter of the law. There are many dangerous consequences when a governing body is left in charge of determining the worth of its citizens, thereby altering what I call the natural bookends of life. Let's take a look first at the natural bookends as our country believed in its inception and as written in the foundation of our government. Created equal needs a mark in time when the creation process begins. Science has shown us that exact moment to be the moment of conception. With electron microscope, you can even see a spark, some say it's zinc, that sets the motion into action, with each cell predetermined to become a human heart, a human eye, an arm, and in 9 months, a newborn who grows into a youth, and then an adult, then an elderly, and finally and hopefully to a peaceful natural death. But we have forsaken the natural bookends of life and replaced them with man-made bookends. dressing them up to make it look nice and appealing. Because they are man-made, they're made for man to shift at his will. We've shifted already with Roe v. Wade in saying that the government will not protect created life. So what goes on before one is born will stay on the outside of the bookends. At the other side, we now have 10 states and DC who have made assisted suicide legal. So much for the natural death. But wait, wasn't there a governor who once said a baby born could die on a countertop, made comfortable if the mother and father agreed it was for the best? Bye-bye, baby. And don't think euthanasia isn't around the corner. And what's left is also discretionary of what the government will protect. So don't be surprised if one day you find yourself on the other end of those ever-shifting bookends. We need to get back to the natural bookends of life and include all equally. We need to find our voice and speak out for those who are left outside of those man-made bookends. Our life could depend on it. Remember these words of a famous poem written during the rise of Nazi Germany. First they came for the communist, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the trade unionist, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. We need to speak up for the worth and dignity of those who can't speak up for themselves. We need to value the worth and dignity of every human life. We all have worth. From that moment of conception, through our childhood, through our teens, old age, and yes, until we take that last breath. And while some may be disabled, no one is disworthed and never should be discarded. And worth knows no geographic boundaries. We all have worth. Know your worth. And please share this message.